L'chaim, l'chaim. L'chaim, l'chaim v'lebracha, l'chaim v'lebracha, l'chaim v'lebracha, l'chaim v'lebracha, l'chaim v'lebracha, l'chaim v'lebracha, l'chaim. L'chaim v'lebracha, l'chaim v'lebracha, l'chaim v'lebracha, l'chaim v'lebracha. But you see, but there's another side to this coin. And I think the other side to this coin is a very important part of this. David HaMelech, King David said Tzamah. David HaMelech said King David Tzamah Chanafshi. Why did he say it? Because he was kicked out of Eretz Yisrael. He was made to leave. The king was his own father-in-law, and his father-in-law Poshet wanted him dead because Shaul was paranoid. Now's not the time to have this conversation. But of all the personalities in Tanakh, you have to feel bad for Shaul HaMelech. He got such a raw deal. His story is not a reflection of who he is. His story is a reflection of the fact that he wasn't David. He was given a job that was never meant for him, that he didn't want, and then he was punished for it. Shaul HaMelech was a very, very big talent. It says in the Navi, Ben Shono Achas Shaul B'Molchi. The Gemara says, Shaul HaMelech became a king at the age of 1 year. Says the Gemara, do me a favor, 1 year. And the Gemara says he was as pure in the area of Chet as a 1-year-old. Shaul HaMelech. And then the story of his life is so tragic. He tried to kill David, his own son-in-law and successor. So David ran away, and he went outside of Etzrok to Gas, whatever. He went to Gaza. I hate to say it. He went to Gaza, which was then ruled by the Plishtim. And he was bemid by Yehuda, the desert in the Negev, the south of Eretz Yisrael. And he sings, Tzama l'cha nafshi, kama l'cha besari, be'eretz tziva ivli moyim. Tzama l'cha nafshi, my soul thirsts. Kama l'cha besari, my body aches. I'm in pain, psychologically, spiritually, physically. Farvos, because be'eretz tziva, I've been disposed to a place where there's no life, there's no water, there's no life. And of course, he didn't only mean the fact that physically the desert has no water. He meant that there was no Torah, there was no Elokus, there was no Beis HaMikdash, there was no nothing. And then he says, "Kei b'kodesh chazisicha." It's true that b'kodesh, when I was in the holy places, wherever the holy places were, Shiloi and Noiv and Gived. So when I went to holy places, I experienced Elokus, at least on the madrega of Chizayin, if not on the madrega of Re'iyah. Chizayin is a little bit of a lower level. Chizayin means to see in Aramaic. Re'iyah means to see in Hebrew. He doesn't say Kain b'kodesh Re'i sicha. He says Kain b'kodesh Chazi sicha. It's a little bit of a lower level. But he says when I was in better places, in better times, I was able to experience you. Liras uschoch v'decha. Now I'm b'mid by Yehuda. This is what David HaMelech laments. So on these psukim, there's a Baal Shem Tov, a very important Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov changes one word. But in changing one word, he changes the entire scenario. And it really gives us an entirely different perspective on the Rebbe saying, Tzama l'cha nafshi. When the Rebbe wanted to speak in a melody, he said, Tzama l'cha nafshi. And there's a part of me that believes that he said Tzama because it hurt. But there's another spin. The Baal Shem Tov changed one word. Tzama l'cha nafshi, kama l'cha besari, be'eretz tziva ivli moyim. And instead of the word Kain b'kodesh, he said Halavai b'kodesh, which changes the meaning of the pasuk Menachatz Alakatz. You mind give me the mashki? Instead of Kain b'kodesh means Kain, it's true. Kain in Hebrew is like Hain. Hain means yes. Hain, thank you. Hain, it's true. B'kodesh, when I was in holiness, Chazisich, I saw you. So the Baal Shem Tov takes out the Kain and puts in Halavai. I wish that I was in Yerushalayim, when I was in Shiloi, when I was in Noiv, when I was in Givin, when I was in the Beis HaMikdash. The batteries just died. Hello, testing, 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's 11 o'clock.
Now they're for Farbrengen.
It's because of the battery or because of 11 o'clock?
I'll get a charger for it.
Okay. He says, I wish, instead of saying Came back that when I was closer to you, I knew you. He completely spins it around. It doesn't work?
No, this works. That needs to be charged.
Oh, that needs to be charged. Listen. Wait 1 second. Here, so the Baal Shem Tov changes one word. Thank you. The Baal Shem Tov changes one word. Instead of saying Cain, it's true. Ba'kodesh chazisicha, when I was in holiness, I saw you. He says, Halavai, I wish that when I was in holiness, I would see you like I see you now. This changes the meaning of the pasuk completely. How? David HaMelech is far from God. King David is far from the Eibishter. He finds himself in, the battery died, okay. He finds himself in a circumstance where he cannot experience Gil Elikus. Hashem is hiding from him. And he says, in this circumstance where Hashem is hiding from me, where I cannot see him, I'm closer to him than I was when I could see him. Halavai ba'kodesh, I wish that when I was closer to him and I actually experienced him, I would feel about him the way I feel now that I don't have him. Baal Shem Tov turns the psukim around. David HaMelech is thirsting for God who's hiding from him. And David HaMelech concedes, my desire for the God who I don't see is more of God than the God I used to see. Wanting the Eibishter and not having him actually makes me closer to him than when I had him. Halavai ba'kodesh, I wish when I was intimate with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when I lived in a holy world, in a pure world, in a good world, and I felt so close to him, I wish my closeness to him at that time was as genuine as what I have now that I don't have him. And you have to think about that in terms of the Rebbe. You have to think about that in terms of the Rebbe. You have to think about that in terms of the Rebbe. Watch that in terms of the Rebbe. And this is a real, I think it's a truth. I think it's an undeniable truth. Yeah, that's right. And the word panim. You look at the face of God and you see a mask, and in fact you're seeing him himself. You're not seeing an interpretation, you're not seeing a level, you're not seeing a revelation, you're seeing him himself. Exactly. The Rebbe is Metzias, Rabbi Yossi is the Bali Tshuva. There's no question about it. And the truth is, if you want to be honest, as far as the Rebbe is concerned, the so-called FFBs, those people who are messed up because they were never born Lubavitch, we're all Bali Tshuva. We're a generation of Bali Tshuva. And what's about Tshuva? What's about Tshuva? What's about Tshuva? What's about Tshuva? In Chassidus. What's about Tshuva? About Tshuva is a person whose motivation does not become because he desires God. About Tshuva is a person whose motivation is because he wants to go away from where he is. Where he is no good. And David HaMelech says that when you're running to God, the running has a limit. But when you're running from the emptiness of not having God, that running has no limit. I think we could all, there's no question that the Rebbe is Metzias as the Baalei Tshuva. I was born in 1965. I grew up in the 70s. My home, my childhood home, all the Baalei Tshuva came through our home. I saw them, I knew them all, I saw them all. The Rebbe celebrated the Baalei Tshuva. The Baalei Tshuva, the Rebbe's children. You know, a woman once told the Rebbe that she's a Baalei Tshuva, so she's missing out on what they call yesh, being traditional, a chassid ben chassid. So the Rebbe said to her, I have two kinds of chassidim. The chassidim that I inherited from my father-in-law, and the chassidim that are my own. And the chassidim that are my own are the Baalei Tshuva. And what makes a Baal Tshuva is not because he wasn't born religious. What makes a Baal Tshuva is tzameh l'chanafshi. What makes a Baal Tshuva is thirst, is want. The guys who have is satisfied. It says in Chassidus, the highest level of the whole neshama, the highest madrega of the neshama is called tainuk. It's translated in English as delight, whatever delight means. It's considered higher than Ratz. Kabbalistically, in Maimonides Chassidus, Samach Vav, you have Lech Lecha, Neach and Lech Lecha, where the Rebbe Rashab explores at great length, on many levels, the will of the nefesh, the urgent will of the nefesh, and the delight of the nefesh, the pleasure of the nefesh. And the Rebbe Rashab actually says, there's no level the neshama higher than pleasure. But pleasure is anticlimactic. Why? Because the worst thing that can happen to a person is to get what they want. The want is always truer than the have. It's a fact. And that's the taich tzamah l'chanafshi. I don't know what the Rebbe was thinking. I think a lot of people, especially sociologists, people who, like I said, instead of living life, study other people's lives. You don't want to be an expert. Let somebody else study you and tell you that you're a monkey and that you're a mishuggin and a drekap. You're living your life. Their whole life is defined by giving an opinion on you. It's really sad. It's sad that people who call themselves smart, their whole life is studying other people's lives. They never take a look in the mirror. They're busy. I can't live because I'm an expert. I can't get married. I can't have a family. I have to study the people who do. From the academics, from the kluge mensch. You be a dumb idiot, get married and have kids and let them study you and decide that you have this problem and that problem and you're stuck in this way, stuck in the other way, but at least you're alive. The experts who are studying you, let them fill all the spots. And you don't be a student of life, just live it. And let them tell you 101 ways that you're messed up and 101 ways something wrong with you. Thank you for your professional opinion. I will either take it or leave it, but I'm going to continue living. You continue your study. If people would study the Rebbe, they would say perhaps that when the Rebbe said tzamah, he was saying tzamah because of the feeling of emptiness that the Rebbe felt, considering the world from which the Rebbe came. I cannot say that there's no part of tzamah that the Rebbe said, I remember a different world. It's gone. It's gone. I don't know if you know this, but a man made a book with photographs, and he called it The Vanishing World, or The Vanished World. A Jew had been in Poland in the 30s. He took pictures. If I'm saying the name of the book incorrectly, please correct me, but it's a known book. He made a book of pictures, he went to Europe before the war. He took pictures, and after the Holocaust, he published a book called The Vanished World. Think of The Vanished World. Huh? Yeah. So he's describing a world that's no more. And he sent a copy of this book to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe wrote him a letter. And then the Rebbe wrote to him, "Excuse me, sir, that world has not yet vanished. It's alive and well," number one. And number two, in many ways, the world that's today is better than that world. That world has not disappeared. If there's nowhere to look, you'll find the same world. And in many ways, it's better than it was. So I'm not going to say that when the Rebbe said, tzamah l'chanafshi, there's no part of it where the Rebbe is saying, it would have been nice if there was no Holocaust, and there was no Tsarist Russian Revolution, and Teimchat Tmimim was in full bloom, and there was another generation of Tmimim who were serving the Eibishter like they did in Lubavitch. I want to tell you a Lashon Hara. But I'm not going to say any names, so I won't be able any Avedis. It's a Lashon Hara. Believe me, it's a Lashon Hara. You're interested in the name because it's going to make you a bigger chassid or a bigger yente.
Don't tell me you're going to say Lashon Hara and then not say the name.
I'm going to say the Lashon Hara without the name. And Ariel, your seat is right. If you want to be a chitik, you got to sit next to me and give you a zitz. Across the table, it doesn't work. Halya, listen. The Rebbe sent a shliach to England in 1959. His name was Rabbi Nachman Sudak. Rabbi Nachman Sudak was born in Russia, probably in 1934. Went through hell. Literally, he went through the Holocaust. Starvation, death. During the Holocaust, people died like people ate breakfast. Death was all around them. Mamish. Mov is the psukim that describe in Eicha what it means. Death was just every day. Some people survived, some people died. As the Chazal say, in a time of a dever, of a magefa, the healthiest people died, the sick people survived. The world is out of control. That was his upbringing. That was his youth. That was his adolescence. He came out of Russia. He was a teenager. Went to Israel. He came to the Rebbe. But he had every reason to be a mental case. His yeshiva experience was so compromised because he didn't have a normal life. And the Rebbe sent him on shlichus to London. In London, there was an unusually large, relatively speaking, collection of anash, chassidim. There were many Lubavitcher chassidim were settled in London. Many of them were literally 3 or 4 times his age. Some of them learned in Lubavitch, and even they didn't learn in Lubavitch, but they were the age of his parents. And he shows up, and he starts to work. He built a shul, he built a school, everything he did. I was in London. I heard the story from one of his grandchildren, and he showed me the letter. It was an old chassid, a very respectable man, a really respectable man, who had learned in Lubavitch. He was probably 60 years older than Nachman, 50 years older for sure. And Rabbi Nachman Tzudek would make events. It is Kislev, it's Shvat. And naturally the Anash would gather. And he was the Shliach. So he was Taka Younger Manchiko, but he would speak. And this old chassid would sit in the corner and mutter under his breath, loud enough for people to hear, yeah, I played it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He would make fun of him. This young Lubavitcher, who went through Shiva Medura Gehenim, never had a normal yeshiva experience, was the Rebbe Shliach. And this old chassid would sit in the corner and mutter, but loud enough for people to hear, I played it. It was one of Rabbi Sudak's many nisyonis. He had to take it. And the Rebbe wrote this old chassid a letter. And he writes to him as follows. I got word that I sent a young shliach to London who's doing the things that you should have done. I should never have sent a shliach to London. There's so many anash. You need a young shliach from America to build a yeshiva, to build a shul. You should have done it. You didn't put your finger in cold water. You sat there, an old holy roller, let the world serve me. He was never in Lubavitch. Grew up in the worst time a Jew can grow up. Never saw Yemei Ha'oid. He didn't have a normal upbringing. He didn't see the holy days in Lubavitch. He came to London, and he's doing what you should have done. And you sit and mutter under your breath insults. And the Rebbe writes, I assure you he did not tell me, he never would. I heard from other people. And the Rebbe says, I do not believe that these words are going to make any difference. I think you're going to continue being disrespectful. But I have to file a protest. You've been in London for 15 years. You didn't do a thing. I sent the Americana Boychikul, a young generation, the next generation kid. Yeah, you're right, he's not as a big a Talmud Chacham as you. But the question becomes, what have you done? And you sit and undermine him? And the Rebbe says, I'm writing this letter not because I think it's going to help, but because I have an obligation to protest. I have an obligation to protest. I saw this letter in the hands of one of Rabbi Sudak's grandchildren. And he told me that this old chassid received this letter from the Rebbe, and he never, ever again opened his mouth. No, but the Rebbe said, I don't think it's going to make a difference. He got the message. He got the message. So Rabbi Nachman Tzudek was not a BT, he wasn't a Baal Tshuva, but he was a Baal Tshuva. We're all Baal Tshuva, Favos, because our lives are defined by Tzomah L'Chanafshi. Our lives are not defined by what we have, but we wish we had. But we wish we had. And this is true especially of the children, the boys and the girls that I teach. Their whole chassidus is a chassidus of Tzomah. So the Baal Shem Tov turns this song around. Instead of Tzomah being Gvei Yizmir, I missed out, the Tzomah says this desire is stronger than having. If you remember the 70s and the 80s, the way the Rebbe celebrated the Baal Tshuva, the way he loved them, the way the Rebbe saw the Rebbe couldn't do enough, the Rebbe's love for the Baal Tshuva, the Rebbe felt that it was our obligation. It was our nashed obligation to support the Balei Tshuva, and that the honest truth was, some didn't, some didn't. Kran Hai said people who felt the Balei Tshuva were an invasion. And then those who understood, these are the Rebbe's kinder, the Balei Tshuva, the Rebbe's children. They're the Rebbe's children. I know for a fact that I saw the letter. My father, I just showed this to me, my father wrote a letter to the Rebbe in the 80s. With the proposal to make a separate community for the Balei Tshuva. And a whole bunch of other points about what he thought would be appropriate for the Balei Tshuva. And the Rebbe's answer was, we're one community. He didn't answer any other points. All the other points that speak to this one, speak to this one. But about the question of making the Balei Tshuva separate Yehillah, Shumay finished. We're one community. The Rebbe didn't want it. The Rebbe wanted that Anash, the Azegirah for the Holy Rollers, should support the Balei Tshuva in such a way that we should be an integrated community. I don't think we did such a good job, honestly. But this is true. That you could explain the Rebbe's Tzomah L'Chanafshi, not that he's looking back to a world that was, but he was singing what is. The Rebbe was saying what is. We live in a generation where we're more defined by what we don't have than by what we have. And the want is stronger than the have. In other words, you don't have to say that the Rebbe's Tzomah was, I grew up in a different world and now I'm in this world and I have to serve Hashem in this world and I have to do b'simcha. No, this is the world. This is the world of want. It's no doubt about it. It's no doubt about it, not that the Rebbe was singing, I don't know why the Rebbe sang it, but this is true of our generation. We're a generation of want. And if you study the Rebbe's philosophy, L'chatchila Ribber, Shtus de Kedusha, Tshuva Law, the Rebbe talked to us in ways that the Alter Rebbe didn't speak to his Chassidim. The Rebbe talked about the idea that a person could skip 1,000 steps. Always. The Rebbe talked about the idea that a person 1 minute is here and the next minute is in the highest Madrigas. The Rebbe wasn't saying it to patronize us or to be dramatic. The Rebbe actually believed that in our generation, a person can go from here to here in an instant. Because when the motivation is not what I have, but the motivation is what I don't have, the drive that comes from not having is far stronger than the drive that comes from having. In Tanya chapter 7, Perek Zayin, Alter Rebbe talks about Tshuva. And he quotes the Gemara. That the Gemara says, when a person does Tshuva, the sins become merits. The Avedas become mitzvahs. Alter Rebbe says, why? Because the Hoya of Al Yedei Zeh, who ball the Avar Abazu, the motivation of the Baal Tshuva is the distance, it's not the closeness. And because the motivation of the Baal Tshuva is the distance, that means the distance brought him to the Tshuva. If the distance brought him to the Tshuva, the distance is a part of the Tshuva. That makes Zavein into a mitzvah. It says Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya. And I personally believe we're a generation of Balei Tshuva. However you were born, we're a generation of people, even those of us who grew up at the Rebbe's feet, we're a generation of people who are defined more by what we want than by what we have. So it's not,
America.
It's America, yeah. See, but in America you can very easily fall asleep. You can become shikar with materialism. You can. And that's the risk. That you should study Basi Lagani. At every line he's reminding you, be careful, don't get intoxicated by material. It's a distraction. It puts you to sleep. You know, I heard from people, I mean, this is not my generation. I saw Chassidim who came from Russia. Not too many, but a few. I saw Reb Mendel, I saw Michal Teitelbaum, Mendel Barozov. And they described that people would freeze. I don't want to finish the sentence. Freezing is the most pleasant death. You push it, fall asleep. And you don't wake up. And there are famous stories of Chassidim walking in the wintry Siberian night. I want to rest for 2 minutes. If you stop to rest for 2 minutes, you never got up. And Michal Teitelbaum would wake you, he would kick you, get up! I want to rest for 1 minute. No, don't stop! Because if you're going to rest, you're going to fall asleep, and you fall asleep. The challenge of the materialism, Gashmias, it's a wonderful bracha to have all this wealth. but it's slowly, it puts you to sleep. It's such a pleasant way, but you wake up and then, what happened? I talk about this every single Farbrengen, and I'm sure I talk about this case of Moshe Yes, right? Moshe Yes's song, My Zaidi, is the story of American Jews. It's like inspired by God. He was a very talented man, but God wrote this song. It's incredible. Because what did he say in the song? He says nobody didn't want to be religious. It just happened. It just happened. Why? Because we didn't pay attention. We didn't pay attention. This is the test. This is the test. So the alternative to that is a hunger. It's not I'm rich and I have a hunger. The hunger. American Hasidim are defined more by what they want than by what they have. And I think that's a different way of explaining what the Rebbe means when the Rebbe says Sama. He's not talking about himself. He's talking about us. We live in a time of Tzama. The thirst, the want is an incredible motivator. And we have to use it to the Eibishter. The children, our boys and girls who never saw the Rebbe, their motivation is Tzama. If you know them well and you watch, I have children who listen to whole Farbrengens. You know that? Before you Shvat, they sit down. Some of them stand, but they put on a video and they try to create a mood. But they're actually standing by the Rebbe in 770, and they stand there 6 hours. They participate in the Farbrengen. They want to recreate for themselves a sense of that experience in as real a way, in as human a way as possible. And their motivation is Tzama. And the Tzama is stronger than the Cain. The Halavai is stronger than the Cain. So the message, the end of this speech is, the point of this speech is, the motivation of the Baal Tshuva is not what he has, but what he wants. We all have that want. We have to maintain, we have to sustain the desire. You feed the desire by learning Torah. You feed the desire by learning Chassidus. You feed the desire by doing the things that Rebbe says to do. But you never put the desire in a position where desire is satisfied. Because desire is satisfied, that's no good. Even if it's true. Even if it's true that desire has been satisfied, satisfaction is an end. You want the urgency, you want the tzoma. L'chaim v'levracha, we shouldn't get depressed, we shouldn't get down, but we should be driven by a hunger, a tzoma, tzoma. Oh, I have a friend of mine who studies personalities. He has a whole graph, Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Offer, and then he says to me about myself, and it's quite true. He says, you're Eish Offer. What Eish Offer means? You hate yourself, so you're driven by that hatred to do another thing. It's true. It's my personality. I wish I had a different person. That's what I got. But a person needs to always be driven by the tzama, by the want. It's not good enough. That's what the Rebbe used to say. I'm happy, but I'm not satisfied. L'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim. L'chaim tev nisham, l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim v'levracha. We sang guys last time. L'chaim. Let's sing Ata v'chatanu.
Which one?
Oy Ata v'chatanu mi kol ha'amim.